Hello, everyone. I'm Connie Myers, and I have my two really dear friends, Lori Namazi and Tracy Hawkins with me. Lori, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Tracy, good to see you again.
It's good to be seen. I get to see you all too.
Well, we have a very interesting topic that's very near and dear to my heart today. May is Older Americans Month. So we're going to be talking about the good, the ugly, and the dangerous when it comes to getting a little bit older. So I think, since I'm the eldest here, I think we should go with Lori first. So Lori, what is something good about getting older?
So I think something good about getting older is seeing the new generations. So I am a new grandma. My daughter had my first grandbaby, her first baby 6 weeks ago. And I thought I'm too young to be a grandma, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It's just a number. Love the little guy. But the best part of it for me is that my dad got to become a great grandfather.
Yay.
Absolutely. Tracy, what about you? What's something good about
We made it.
it?
Really, literally, we're here. And that's what I say when people complain about, oh, I'm old, it beats the alternative. So I embrace every year. So I'm here.
Well, I can tell you, Tracy, that I just mentioned before we started recording that, I feel younger today than I did when I was 50. And I actually am living my life in a more reflective and fun way. And I have more energy. I'm more enthusiastic than what I used to be. And I think it really has a lot to do with mindset. Like Lori, you mentioned the fact of being a grandmother. I became a great grandmother 4 years ago. And I can tell you, I always tell people, if I didn't know how much fun a grandmother was going to be, I'd have done that first.
Agreed.
So I think as a great grandmother, it's even gets better. So
Wow.
That's fantastic.
anyway, so when was your grandson born?
He was born April 4th.
And Tracy, how old are your kids?
I have two grandkids. I have a 12-year-old and I think he's 8. So I've been a grandma and I agree with you that I don't want to say this out loud. It's more fun being a grandparent. I call them my grand angels. So I love it. Love it.
Yeah. Well, I tell everybody because my youngest granddaughter is 23. And I can tell you that it goes really fast. So enjoy every single second of it as a grandparent, because it's one of the joys of your life, really. My very best friend always said she never wanted to be a grandma until she became a grandma.
Right. People don't understand. They just don't understand.
Well, unfortunately, as we get older, the clock ticking away, and it actually changes us physically as well as mentally, and that brings up some of the ugliness of getting older. Lori, what is an ugly part for you?
Well, when we look at real estate, in the real estate space, the ugly part is we have so many older Americans who want to move to be near their families, and they simply can't afford it. So, we have a benefit in California with Prop 13 that our property taxes are only going to go up so much each year. So when you bought your home 40 years ago, your property taxes have remained relatively low because they're not adjusting. There's a cap. It can only cap at 2% each year as an increase. So they're not hitting market rate taxes each year. And then we also have Prop 19. And again, this is California, where finally a older American, and that definition is 55 and older. So I'm getting close, but not quite there yet. 55 and older can move their property tax base, but historically it's only been to 5 counties, and there's 45 counties in the state. So Prop 19 was passed a couple of years ago, which allows Americans to move that tax basis with them up to the amount of the house that they're selling. So if they purchase something more expensive, then they're going to have a part of it that's at a higher tax rate, the normal tax rate, but it gives them that opportunity to move. And prior to that, like I said, only 5 counties participated, and you had to buy something of lesser value. Well, California constantly benefits from great housing appreciation. There was nowhere to move that was less expensive than what you're selling for. So the ugly part of it has been that there's not a lot of opportunity. In other states, I'm sure they don't have these tax benefits, and so they are at a greater disadvantage. And with that, the entire nation is having an inventory shortage. So, if you can move, where do you go? You want to move near your kids, but can you actually make that happen? So that's, in the real estate side, in my opinion, that's the bad side of it, is, you are advantaged by having that lower tax base in a home that may or may not suit your needs anymore. Because if you bought a 2-story home and suddenly you'd prefer to have a single story, those are in high demand. You don't have a place to go. So it's really hard for older Americans to be able to move. And that is furthering our inventory shortage in the state of California and nationwide as well. Because if, historically it used to be an owner would own the home 10 or 11 years. Now it's 20 years. 18 to 20 years is the average now. So these homes are not turning over, which is creating a difficulty for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tracey, what's ugly for you?
That people, instead of celebrating older Americans, they decide to target them. Older Americans work their whole life. And according to Lori's description, I'm talking about them in the third person. I am an older American. So we work our entire lives. And you would think at some point we would celebrate those older and wiser, but criminals specifically target older Americans, and they are looking to separate them from their lifetime of savings that they need to live on forever. And they have no conscience about it. They just don't care. And that bothers me. But I know there are resources out there, and I'll talk about those that will help older Americans hold on. But the biggest problem I have is that it's a fight. Why do older Americans have to fight to keep what's already theirs? Why do they have to look over their shoulder and worry about being scammed? And even from answering the phone, I had a couple of aunts who lived alone, and they would get these phone calls and I would have to worry about them. And one aunt, she said, I just play with them. I know they're calling to scam me. She said, but I just, play and drag it out. But on the other hand, she was adopting these little kids from an Indian nation. It's like, I don't know if those are real or not. My other aunt was sending money into one of these TV evangelicals, and I don't know if that's real or not, but it made them happy. And I just say shame on people who target the heartstrings of the older American.
I would like to emphasize on that as well, because I haven't had personally calls about my grandson being in jail or in the hospital or something like that. But I have 2 really good friends that got those phone calls, and they almost fell for it. I mean, and it's so easy. I almost got scammed I got a call saying that that somebody had bought a computer on my Amazon account out of Baltimore, Maryland. And did you buy that? And I go, no, I didn't buy it. Well, it turns out it was not Amazon. It was a scam, and they almost got me. I mean, I think it's very easy to fall into those traps, and it's very easy to not understand exactly what it is that they're trying to do. And especially a lot of older Americans, they just don't know what they're up against. I mean, I mentioned earlier that I'm fighting right now with Zelle. Zelle is a bank to bank where you can transfer money. And I was taken for to $2,000 out of my account that was supposed to be going to somebody. And unfortunately, and this is something, whether you're older or not, that you need to be aware of, with Zelle, the banks, it's owned by banks. It's owned by 7 major banks. And they don't support, if there's some kind of fraud, they don't support it. So you have to fight. You have to really fight if you want to get any assistance. So whether you're old or not, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, it's much easier for people like myself. It's like the phone calls like tripled over the last couple of years. I think for the time I turned 70, because I'm 73, It was like all of a sudden I'm getting all these calls and all these calls. I don't anymore. I don't answer a phone unless I know exactly who it is.
Yep.
I don't even want to go there. So I don't pick up the phone. If they really want to talk to me, they'll leave a message. But yeah, I mean, the number of calls that I was starting to get were just ridiculous. And 99.9 of the time it says it's a scam. So I think we really need to be aware of that. We also really need to be sure, especially if we're older, we don't really understand technology. We need to really understand how to protect ourselves when it comes to passwords. And a lot of older people, especially since they don't understand computers, I'm almost that way. I've learned to be different, but to not do the updates because they don't want the change. So it's critically important that you keep all of your systems and everything up to date. And I just had a big hassle over my book account with KDP and Amazon was on the call with them this morning because I couldn't do the 2-code verification because the phone number was different than my phone number. And I didn't know whose phone number it was. So all of that can be very, very confusing. It can be frustrating. It can be difficult. And a lot of times you don't have the people there to really help you. So what I suggest is that you make sure you have somebody that's tech savvy. That's either probably your grandchildren are ideal, and finding somebody that's tech savvy that can really help you walk your way through it, and so that you don't get frustrated and you don't get upset. So, all right, let's get to the really juicy part, the dangerous part. Lori, what about you?
So I'm going to talk about real estate transactions again, because I had a broker reach out to me with an issue that honestly I didn't know how to handle. So we're seeing that there are elder abuse issues surrounding the real estate transaction. And I kind of bucketed those into 3 categories. Well, there's the first category of the swindling. So a family member who's swindling, the older person out of the property, basically, convincing them to have the will changed, change the trust, change the title. And then, of course, the scammers who do that automatically as well, who try, but also caretakers who are doing the same thing. So that's a major issue. And in the case of the broker that called me, their situation was that the owner of the property, the older American, was feeling pressured to sell by the family member. So much so that my broker said, I don't even know if I have a valid real estate contract because I'm not sure this person is in a capable capacity in order to sign the contract. And she said it was fascinating because the person seemed to have all their faculties, but every time the son was there, who was always there, you could see the gentleman tense up. And like at one point, he kind of whispered something to her and she's thinking, he said, like, I'm scared. And so she called me and she's like, what do I do? Who do I report this to? And I thought, gosh, hadn't ever thought of that. So we asked around and of course, nobody knew. Who do you call? So basically, we found HHS, who's a governmental agency that you can report it to. But that was all that we knew to do. And at one point, I think they had the company attorney get involved because they weren't sure if they really should move forward with this transaction if that gentleman just felt pressured. So pressured to sell was my second point. Third point, not in a sound mind, not in sound capacity. Their faculties are just not there. How do you handle those types of transactions? Well, you need to be sure that there is someone who's capable of translating and being that responsible party. And in California, we have a form, representative capacity form, and you still need legal documentation. You can't just say, hey, daughter, please be my representative. It's got to be in an official legal capacity in order to facilitate that transaction and use that form, but it guides you on the fact that, okay, you can have someone else monitor this transaction, be the representative and sign everything. So we're starting to see more issues in these areas with older Americans. And as an agent, you have to be on alert. So you have to pay attention. You know, we often work with strangers, so we don't know if that person is normally like this, normally flustered or incoherent, you know, just rambling on. We don't know if that's their normal and they're fine, or it's a problem. And we don't know, you know, who might be pressuring them behind the scenes to sell that property. So we have to use some really good judgment. And as a practitioner, you know, if you feel there's something wrong, go to your manager, go to your broker, go to your company attorney if you've got one, and just talk about the situation. If you are the broker, reach out to another broker or your attorney and just talk about the situation and figure out, you know, is this something that we need to intervene? Maybe we call HHS. And I need to like look up what HHS stands for because I don't remember. Health and Human Services. Okay, I should have wrote that down.
Right.
But do we need to reach out to them and ask for some type of intervention? And that's a real scary thing because you don't want to drag this governmental agency into a situation that doesn't exist and create a problem. But you have to recognize some greater warning signs that, you know, would warrant it. So that for me is the dangerous.
I think that's best to end up on the safe side and do as much as you can to find out, because there are a lot of elderly people out there that are at high risk. Tracey, what about you?
Start with the numbers. 1 in 10 senior citizens or older Americans are going to be victims of fraud. The average dollar amount is just over $20,000, and the FBI says over $1 billion was lost. When I teach my classes, I always talk about agents leading with safety. That means it's a point that Lori said is something that you can add to the relationship with the consumer. Pay attention, look out for their best interests and not make it all about money. So I like that. And that's something that I think that real estate agents need to do. And another thing that I say is there is a steps that you need to take whenever you get an email, a text message, even Facebook Messenger. I say, pause, stop, and think before you respond, regardless of what it is. I remember, and like you said, Connie, I could have fallen for it. I got a text message that said, hey, your PayPal password has been changed. Click here if you didn't authorize it. And I felt my finger heading toward that. And I said, wait, stop. And then I went out and I went directly to the PayPal account and I found out that all was well. And what we found, and this is a fact, and it's profound if you stop and think about it. We can never be victims of cyber crime if we don't take action. The only way we are victims is if we do something. We have to do something to give criminals access to our information. We have to click a link. We have to respond to an email. We have to answer a phone call. We have to give information. So for that reason, I say just stop, pause, and think before you respond to anything. And another thing is use resources. And here I am about to sound like an AARP commercial. AARP has what's called the Fraud Network. I think that's what it's called, the Fraud Network. And I just heard about it the other day. It will blow your mind. And Connie, you'll probably really appreciate this with your situation. It's the Fraud Watch Network. And what you do is you type in your zip code, and then it will tell you the actual crimes that are happening within your area. It will identify the type of crimes, whether it's credit cards, fraudulent, mortgage crimes, Medicare type crimes, and it's eye-opening to see what's going on in your exact area. So utilize AARP as a resource. Again, that's the Fraud Watch Network. And also, when you look at crimes, extortion against senior citizens, the top 3 states, can you ladies take a guess what you think the top 3 states would be where senior citizen victims are found?
Florida.
Yes.
Florida.
New York, California.
California. And the third is Texas.
Oh.
Those are the top 3 states where senior citizens are targeted, which is heartbreaking. And then you talked about the types of crimes. What we need to also know is that it's not just the financial crimes, the technology crimes. How many times have you got an email, especially from Microsoft, saying, hey, here's a tech issue with your Microsoft account. And like you said, Connie, the update is so important. So often we all have brushed aside that message to say update your phone or update your laptop because we're busy. We have too much to do. So when it says update, we're thinking we don't have time. Whenever there is any kind of a security weakness or issue, those companies' job is to help us stay safe. So they said, here's a patch, here's an update, here's how you fix it. And if we ignore it, we're vulnerable, and then we have no one to be angry at but ourselves. So your laptop as well as your phone, take the time to update your account. And then lottery. That was one of my aunt's issues. She entered all kinds of contests. And then after she passed away, I got her mail. Everything was, you won this lottery, you won this sweepstakes. So I know it's entertaining for seniors sometimes, but that's an area that you need to be especially careful, especially if they're asking you to pay to get your prizes. And then one thing that I found out is if you respond to one, whether it's American Publishing House or any of them, if you respond, then you're on a list. So everybody is coming for you. And finally, romance scams. That's a big deal. And I used to watch Dr. Phil all the time, and you would see these older people, and Connie talked about loneliness earlier, and they were being swindled. People would sweet talk them and say whatever they needed to say to get this lonely older person to think they were involved in a romance, and they would take them for everything. So if you are a caretaker for someone who is older, you need to, I hate to say it, but watch their mail. Watch their mail. And with my aunt, I would review their checking account to see where the money's going. It may seem intrusive, but if you don't get involved, then you may end up having to financially try to support them forever. So definitely be involved. And if you are an older American, there is no shame in admitting if you have been the victim of a crime or fraud. There's no shame in it. And so often everyone wants to hold their head down and just act like it didn't happen. They'll be okay. Contact the police, contact the FBI. It is not our job to say, oh, it's not a big deal, it's not a crime. And it's more than just for you, but it's looking out for your neighbors, because if no one reports these crimes, then law enforcement officials don't know there's an issue and they can't warn other people. So for nothing, for tracking purposes, report the crimes.
That's excellent. All of this is really, really good information. I want to talk a little bit about what happens when there's a disaster, because everybody needs to have their emergency kits and everybody needs to have their plans and everything. If you are elderly yourself, you need to really take the time to sit down and really think about, if you had to get out of your house quickly, what you could take. I mean, what could you carry? Maybe you are not able to carry a lot, and create a plan about what it is that you need to take. Make sure that you always have extra medication, and make sure you have the right kind of clothing and things if you need to get out quickly, especially for elderly, and making sure you have good communication. So when it comes to your emergency kit, the number one thing you need to have is cash in case the electricity is out and you can't use a card. You need to also make sure you have, like I said, your medications, but also what kind of phone numbers, making sure you have all your doctor's numbers, you have your insurance information, you have all of that information, either both the hard copy as well as it's saved online, so that you can readily get to it if you have to. But you really need to take time to plan ahead, where, like I said, I'm 73. I don't move as fast as I used to. And I certainly don't run like I used to. So I need to make sure that I am capable of getting out. And if you have somebody in your home that is elderly or disabled, make sure that you have whatever their special needs are. Make sure you have that taken into consideration when you're putting together your emergency plans, your emergency kits. And then the next thing is evacuation. If they have to evacuate the house, how are they going to get out? If they happen to be on the second floor, or even if they're on the first floor and they can't go through the front door, how are they going to go through the window? How are they going to get out? And if they have to be rescued, what does that look like? I mean, all of those things, when you get to be a little bit older and you're not as steady on your feet as you used to be, those are all things you need to take into consideration when it comes to if a natural disaster happens, or some kind of a incident like a power outage, or where all the lights are out. How are you going to find your way around? So all of those things really need to be taken into consideration, and making sure that you have the fire department number. You have obviously calling 911, but do you have the local fire department? Do you have, and letting them know if your little local fire department, you need to let them know if you have special needs. They will mark your house and say, okay, this person has a wheelchair, or this person is blind, or whatever it is. They will make special notes for your property so they know that that there's a special need in that property. So I think now 1 out of 10 homes, this is a statistic that just came out a couple months ago, actually about a month ago. CoreLogic said 1 in 10 homes were damaged or destroyed by a disaster in 2021. Wow. And 10% of all homes are at risk of flooding. So that takes our numbers of what we have to worry about at any age, but particularly when we get older. We really need to think about, okay, what happens if my house floods? What do I have to take care of? What are things that are valuable to me that I need to think about what's going to happen to them? So all of that stuff really needs, the older you get, I think the more important it is to create the plans, to know exactly what you're going to have in your emergency kits. And I think the number one thing is making sure you have the phone numbers of all the important people that you need. So that is my tip. Well, I didn't really talk about what each of you guys do, or me, when I introduced you. So Lori, why don't you tell people a little bit about your company?
Sure. So my company is Namazi Real Estate Resources, and I am a consultant and advisor to real estate brokers. I have clients located across the country. I'm based in Southern California, though. And essentially, I just help other brokers get their business started or do a checkup on their operations. And the ongoing advisement really is often in the area of risk management and compliance. How can they be sure that they're doing everything they need to be doing? But also, when you're an agent in an office, you go to an office manager when you have a question. When you are the broker, your own broker, or maybe you have some agents under your license, who do you go to? So those are the type of clients that I attract, and I do lots of public speaking in the areas of risk management and compliance.
Thank you. Well, Tracey's known as a safety lady. You can kind of imagine what she talks about, what she's all about. Tracey, tell us a little bit more.
I am, for 27 years, I have talked about safety, from a general safety program, just a regular personal safety, how to be safe when you're out and about, safety on the road in your vehicle, how to make your home almost burglar proof, safety online. But my specialty has been real estate safety. And as a former agent, I have the opportunity of teaching real estate agents how to work in a safe manner, not only safely, but a more productive manner. So that required me to create courses that no one else was teaching, where I add the business development component to those courses, where I'm showing here's how you can not only work safely, but here's how you can keep your consumer buyers, sellers, and FSBOs safe as well. And I created the marketing materials. So my safety programs stand out. And another thing, this month is really, being Older Americans Month, really triggered that I want to get back to doing my senior safety programs. And I would go to communities, assisted living, nursing home communities, and talk to seniors. And I was a caregiver for my 2 aunts, and that kind of brought up, the issues that they face living alone, safety and security issues. So I did a senior summit. It was a real life summit the year before the pandemic, before everything closed down. And it was fabulous. I had all kinds of resources like you ladies, topics that you all would talk about. And then the next year, it's like, I'll do it virtually. I ran into a senior who had loved it. And she said, I can't do it virtually. She said, all I have is this. And she showed me a flip phone. So I put it on hold, but now that we're opening back up again, that's something that I want to do again. Not only it needs to be in real life, just get experts together and reach the seniors, because it breaks my heart to hear all the statistics. So my senior safety program is coming back, and it's coming back strong.
This is awesome. Congratulations. Well, my company is called Crisis Knowledge Management and Preparedness Foundation. It actually is it is a nonprofit now. I'm super excited about that. And I'm all about helping people become better prepared, both for disasters as well as other kinds of crisis in our lives. Because if we get prepared for one, we really are getting prepared for all of the above. I have a new book called When the Unthinkable Happens, Be Prepared, Be Ready, which is a fabulous, if you are in the real estate community, this is a fabulous book. Can you imagine having your little name provided by right here by your company and adding a chapter to the book that talks about why you want to be a real estate agent, why you want to give back to your community. It's a great marketing tool. And so you can reach out to me if you're interested in that. But my whole thing is really helping real estate agents be the light that shines in their communities, and being able to give back and increase their sales all at the same time. So, well, thank you, Lori and Tracey. Lori, how do they get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on my website, namaziresources.com. Facebook is the same page, and through Connie.
Okay. Tracey, what about you?
That's my Facebook page, or you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, either Tracey the Safety Lady or Safety and Security Source, LinkedIn, all of the social media. One of those names will get you to me.
All right. When you can find me on Facebook, it's Connie, CONI Myers is my personal page. My website is Crisis Knowledge Management and Preparedness Foundation.com. And I'm all over social media. You can find me everywhere. So, all right, everyone. Well, I hope we gave you some of the good, some of the ugly, and some of the dangerous. And if it's you or somebody in your life that is getting a little older, we never get old, we just get a little older, then there's some really good tips that you received today that maybe will help you or somebody that you love. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye now.
Be safe, everybody.
Thank you all for being here.